What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're all doing well today. Today I'm going to be bringing you my top carried knives of 2022. This is going to be like an open tag. Anyone watching this, feel free to use the same format, but I thought it'd be more fun to go through by category. This will give me an opportunity to kind of go through more of my inventory and be able to share more of the knives that I love that I carried this past year that have remained in my inventory. So I'm going to be doing EDC, and I'm going to be doing, well, let me back up. I'm going to be doing category and an honorable mention. And the category is going to be EDC, premium, a gent's knife, my users, and one wild card. Having said all that, we're going to start the category off with budget knives. So we're going to start with my honorable mention, and that is going to be the Civivi Conspirator. When this knife first came out, I really loved it. I carried it a bunch. It was so well done, and the height or hype of the button lock was just kicking off, and they have just grown exponentially in popularity. And to me, this one is still one of the best knives from 2022 in that budget realm. And one of the reasons I say that is because it is big hand friendly, really comfortable ergonomics, nicely done micarta with chamfered edges. It has a somewhat recessed button lock, very smooth action with a hint of lock stick, which I like on my knives because it lets me know that that lock is completely locked up and it should have no up and down play. Of course, you can have some button stick that you can smooth out without eliminating that, because that button stick could be directly in between the contact points. It could be here in the middle, and that stop pin, you could still develop some lock rock and things of that nature, but it's very unlikely. Very beautiful stone washed Nitro V steel. This one still has the factory edge. All I've done is drop this because, again, this is more of that budget EDC where you can use this for everything, and I just haven't had the need or the desire to sharpen this up. It works really well for me. Nice neutral handle. It is chamfered, it is milled out on the inside so that it helps with the weight. I didn't like the stock pocket clip, and I didn't really have the option for the titanium one that's out there now. But because I have the all blacked out hardware, I just picked up the Banter steel clip, which really does help with the ergos and how it feels in hand. And I apologize for my ashy hands. It's winter time, and it's hard to keep up with the lotion application after washing. It is dual means of deployment too, with a really well done flipper tab. You can push button or you can light switch this one, and you have that fuller for the reverse flick, which is why this was one of my favorites. But having said all that, I'm sure you're wondering, well, what is your pick if this is the honorable mention? And that is really going to be simple for me, and that is the Vosteed Raccoon. Everything that I've said about the Conspirator is true for this, except it has 14C28N. It has a satin finish that's been, you can see the belt lines where it has that finish on there. Fantastic edge. A little bit lighter in weight, but it's still full hand friendly because they did a really nice job with the landing pad here. The reason that I like this one a little bit more is because it does feel a little bit more refined. It has inset liners, to have the micarta back spacers in there, and it has a fold over deep carry pocket clip milled out on the inside. So everything like that, I just think the finishing touches on the Raccoon are a little bit better. And I do like the micarta on the Conspirator, but the Raccoon has a little bit better finish on the micarta, and the button is a little bit more recessed, and you do need to push it in a little bit more deliberate. So everything that has come out, it seems like throughout the year, has been more refined over time. And this is definitely case in point for that. And I really just like how comfortable this is. Great drop point blade. Nitro V and 14C28N to me are very comparable blade steels. I think they both have really good attributes about them, especially for someone just getting into the knife world. Very easy to maintain. I will say though, the action on the Conspirator is a little bit smoother than it is on the Raccoon, but again, the Raccoon a little bit more of a smaller size. So if you like to carry extra gear like I do, then this is going to be a little bit better suited for you. But this also does a nice job flexing into the organizer. So I sometimes will throw this in the organizer and carry a main knife on the pocket, and this is down in the pocket and doesn't impede carrying in it and doesn't clank because of the way that it sits with the organizer. It's on the inside of the pocket and the main knife is out here. So I do like that about this, which is why it ended up getting carried just a little bit more than that Conspirator as far as my budget knives. I'm going to jump into the user category. I'm going to save the wild card for last. So for the user category, the main knife that I use this year the most is going to be the SIG K320. The coating has held up really well, but it still looks really good. And part of the reason that is because in the beginning part of the year, I had the polymer handle because the aluminum version didn't come out till later. So that one looks more used than this one does, but the combination of the two, you can tell that these do get picked up a lot to do tasks such as breaking down cardboard and anything else that I'm really doing around the house. I'll grab this one first, and sometimes, you know, I end up carrying this because I really just love the ergonomics on this knife. It has so much room. Now, when I back up and put the finger in the forward finger choil here, or the forward finger hole, the forward finger choil up here, the finger hole back here, it is comfortable, but I do land on top of this piece here. So I always end up holding it in this position, which is really quite comfortable. Nice thin slicey blade. The S30V done from Hogue is really well done. The access spot lock is really smooth. It came out of the box super smooth, and I really do like this. I try to get it tuned right in that sweet spot where it is really easy and smooth to operate, but I don't have a whole lot of blade play. I have almost none. Like, I'm wrenching and I just have a hint of that wobble. So it's not I mean, it is very hard to notice. I have to really wrench down on it. I like these studs on the crossbar lock because they offer a lot of grip so you don't slip on them. I like the G10 inlay here as well. It provides plenty of grip. Surprisingly goes in and out of the pocket well, but it is a little bit of a pocket shredder. So this is my main. I probably should have let off with the honorable mention, but this is the one that won the category for the user that I like to carry the most this year. The honorable mention, which I should have brought out first, I totally reversed this, already botching the video, is going to be my Spyderco Shaman. I do like to grab this a lot. The M4 on here is done really well, has a really good edge from the factory, and I've maintained the edge from the factory on both these knives that I've had out here for the user category. The only reason this one's a little bit lower down is because I do favor this one a little bit more as far as pride of ownership. So I do carry this like as a main, sometimes EDC, and less of a user for me. And that is why it's the honorable mention. I really like this, especially with the skinny scales. Now, the factory scales are very comfortable, and the hump works really well when you're choked back on the grip, or not choked up, I guess. When you're back on the grip, it's very comfortable. But when you get into that forward fingertail choil, for me, my hands kind of land a little bit funny. It doesn't feel uncomfortable, but it is a little bit of a different feel, and the skinny scales completely eliminate that. I almost think Spyderco should, when they have this forward finger choil, just do a skinny design. But these scales were made for me by Carbodize on Instagram. Spencer's a really nice guy to deal with, very busy, so don't take his shortness or direct replies to be anything other than the fact that he's just very busy because he's grown in popularity. And then I have the MXG Gear Deep Carry Pocket Clip. I get questions all the time on the CME. This is made by OCD for EDC. He has a variety of colors and materials that you can get to kind of match up, or if you just want a solid color one, he has that as well. What I like about that is I don't like the pinch radius on the compression lock. That's always been my complaint. I kind of wish Spyderco would just make all of their compression locks like they do on the Smock, where you have that button coming out. And it's also like the Elementum button lock. If you're familiar with that, it's a button attached to the compression lock bar that comes out here, almost like a liner lock. So that is made by him, and it really does make this really nice to use, but it also makes it nice to use. Sorry, I'm not great at this left-handed, but it's easier to use left-handed. And again, I have this tuned to be, you know, somewhere in between on action and very minimal blade play. So you see it does rock when you're looking right here. that little bit of blade play. That is as much as I'm willing to have on my Spydercos, because I can still, with a little bit of effort, when I can do it right, I can close them fairly easily. This one actually might be a little loose, might need to be tightened up, but great blade shape. I love the M4 steel on here. Just a great knife. I apologize. I'm realizing this is probably going to be a little bit longer as I'm running through the categories, but we only have 3 left, so not too bad. The next category I'm going to do is the gents knife, and I'm going to start with the honorable mention this time, and that is going to be the Ohio Riverjack. And this one here is a traditional pocket knives exclusive. It has M390 blade steel. I know they have a Wharncliffe, but I prefer the look of the spear point on a traditional pocket knife like this, a slip joint, but it is really well done. And again, this is done by QSP, but really well machined. Very nice spine, very flush. I love the finishes on it. The micarta on this is fantastic. I really like the way the micarta looks on these types of knives, even more than the fat carbon. The fat carbon on knives like these traditional pocket knives where they're included are very beautiful, but I really just love the micarta, the look and the feel. It gives you a little bit of extra grip, whereas usually the fat carbon and things of that nature are a little bit more smooth. Really well rounded. It has great walk and talk. So I love that about it. And again, I think this is a great 5th pocket gentleman's knife, because when you see a knife like this, it is non-threatening, right? And I think that's one of the criteria for me that is important for that. It didn't have the best edge from the factory. I did strop it up a little bit, which helped a tremendous amount, but it has great finishes. You can see I definitely use this to get in packages a lot. I think there was some goo on the end from some tape, but this is really great for that, getting into your mail packages, opening things. I really like that for this. And then if you like to do that where you just slice off some swedges for your apple, this actually does really good with that. Very easy to clean and very minimal space in pocket. That's my honorable mention. My number 1 is a knife that actually completely surprised me, but also manufactured by QSP for Finch knives, and that is going to be the Chernobyl Ant 14C28N. I did get the glow resin just because I thought it looked good even when it's not, you know, charged up to glow, and the crest looks good against that colorway and just all the little nooks and crannies of how that resin has the pattern, and it looks really nice. Beautiful titanium pocket clip with the little speed holes on them, just looks really nice. No lanyard hole, which I really like on this model. And then it has a beautiful finish here with the side to side rub, and you can see there you go, the 14C28N and the blade name very faintly printed on there, so it's not too in your face, and then Finch written there. And you can see it gets some use because the finish is starting to scratch from where I'm cutting into packages and opening things. It has the type of liner lock that you just want to lay your finger on top of, push into the knife, and then slide over and disengage. You can disengage it from the side, but it is a little uncomfortable for larger hands, and it does disengage. It has like a ramp right here, and then once you get past the ramp, it disengages real nice. Very smooth on bearing action. And again, I think the size of it and the aesthetics to this particular knife for me, and this is the one that has remained in the collections because I enjoyed this one the most, and I've had a couple of Finches this year, but this to me is my most carried gentleman's knife of 2022. All right, let's go to the next category, and that is going to be the premium knives. And my honorable mention is probably an honorable mention because it's a close competition, but also because I haven't had it as much, but I have carried it a ton since I've gotten it. And that is going to be my Demco AD20S. Now, in its base form, it's just G10 with a steel pocket clip, and probably not what you would consider a premium knife, more of like a hard use USA made knife. For me, putting the original GOAT titanium scales on here and then anodizing and installing the Lynch Northwest deep carry pocket clip to give it just a little pop of color on here with the skiff bearings. Not that the skiff bearings make it premium, but that to me is what takes it to that next level and what I would consider a premium knife. Now, don't get that confused. It's not a knife that I'm scared to use. I actually will grab this probably third in line after the Shaman. to break down some boxes and things of that nature. It's just that it has such a good stone wash on it, and the S45VN is done so well by Demco that it really does mask the use a lot, and it is a real fidget monster. It does have the thumb studs for deployment. It has the opening hole for the reverse flick, or you can just actuate the lock and flick it out with the wrist, which is really, really nice. Now, maintenance on this was a little bit hard because the tolerances are so tight, everything almost snaps into place. But with the original goat scales, what I've found is that it does have the exact tolerance to be able to go on and off easily, so that it's going to be easier for future maintenance. So I really do like the original goat scales. Even if you get the aluminum, it's a wise investment for these knives. I think it adds to the aesthetics, taking the knife to the next level. I like the way it feels more substantial in hand with a little extra weight, but this one here already has a good weight to it, so it felt very solid in hand. And then because of the size, I can actually choke up really easily, even if I wanted to get out to the pinch grip to do the detailed work, or draw cuts and things of that nature. So honorable mention. Again, I think part of that is because I got it so late, but also because I think this is a very close category. The other knife that actually won, that I carried the most in my premium category, is not going to be a surprise to anyone. That's going to be my Chris Reeve Zahn with the RGT titanium pocket clip that I anodized myself to match that Chris Reeve backspacer that I purchased for the Zahn. Awesome ergonomics. This one here, just super comfortable in hand, beautifully done, hollow ground, Tonto blade, just a great knife overall, very smooth action, very satisfying openings and closing clicks. I like this knife so much, and I'm not afraid to use it. It's so comfortable in hand, but it slices so well through materials. It's just easy to pick this one up and use it. The stone wash finish on here, not quite as pronounced of stone markings as it was on the 8020S, but it does hide. I mean, it hides a lot. I can't even see, because I usually end up right here behind this when I'm doing the boxes. I kind of go through like this. You might be able to see it a little bit. Man, it's really hard to pick it up, but I do like to grab this, and I have no issues using it. It just feels like it's really well built, and it's going to stand up to the test of time. I think I've done it a couple times left-handed, and the wedding band has hit right there for me, but it doesn't matter because this is going to be an heirloom that I hand down to the kids. I just love this knife so much. But that is my #1 premium knife that I've carried the most this year. That is the Chris Reeve Zahn. So that leaves us with the wild card category, and I call it the wild card category because sometimes I'll EDC it. It maybe falls into another category like a gentleman's knife, but they're knives that I carried a whole bunch that I think kind of flex. And all these knives truly, if you really wanted, could flex into the category that suits you the best. But for the wild card, I also included this particular knife because of, I think it looks premium enough to where you could carry it somewhere a little bit more upscale or a little bit more appropriate for what would constitute a gentleman's carry, but you could also use this as an EDC or a user, and it's extremely fidgetable. So that is going to be the Wee Roxy 3. And I don't think that's going to surprise anyone, because I think up to this point you're probably wondering where this knife was, because it ends up in a lot of regular carries, and that's because for a small knife they did an awesome job with the forward finger choil, and you can actually fit your whole hand on here comfortably, and you have plenty of blade to cut through because it is that Wharncliffe shape. It's nice and straight, so the push cuts don't try to slide out on you when you're doing that. Nice and thin behind the edge. Tall flat grind. It is a little bit thicker up here at the top, but where the grind ends, it's still plenty flat, and it's very thin behind the edge for a ways up the blade. Great access to the lock bar. I did finally install skiffs in here, but the factory bearings were so smooth I really couldn't justify installing them because they were so good, but I just decided I wanted to go ahead and install them. And I think that the ball count and the solid housing for the balls make it just even more substantial in the pivot. I really love the aesthetics of this one. Great titanium milled pocket clip with some really awesome styling. I love the bronze on the black. I love the bronze backspacer, and hardware. All of that just makes this a really great looking knife. Very interesting and different than a lot of the knives that are out there. I'm not quite sure what I'm hitting that is getting that wet, but anyway, this is definitely one that I have that is my honorable mention, surprisingly, that I love very much to carry as an EDC. I don't think I would bark at taking this out at a wedding or something to cut some string or something like that because of the size of it. I think that's what makes it so flexible. So my number one for the wild card that I really love, and that is going to be the ProTech Mordax. Now, it's not quite as fidgetable as the Roxy because it doesn't have as many means of deployment, but it is very fidgetable considering that it is a button lock style knife. I like this one. The Malibu just fit my hand for a small knife, like just barely fit. The Mordax gives me a little bit of space, and it has a little bit of a choke up point here so you can do some detailed work. It has a taller flat grind. It's a medium geometry. It's not the thinnest behind the edge, but it does thin enough and it can slice. But I also feel like this knife can also be used hard for heavy duty tasks without any concerns. Beautiful stone wash on here, great fit and finish from ProTech, just a great knife overall. Nice pocket clip, excellent ergos, everything that I loved about the Malibu, but in a larger side, and then instead of a reverse tanto coming in with a drop point. I have considered sending this off for a regrind because I think I'd like it to be just a hair thinner, but it isn't awful. It does a really good job. It does slice, and again, the action on here is really nice. It does have skiff bearings in the pivot, and that's because it had steel bearings in the pivot. I like having the ceramic bearings in there better because I don't have to worry about corrosion. So that's the only real advantage here because it is buttery smooth from the factory. Just a great knife, and that is my wild card. Now for EDC, I am bringing two knives out here, but we're going to start with the honorable mention first, and that is going to be the Giant Mouse Ace Grand. 4E steel, Italian made, smooth burlap micarta, but even the Elmax and regular micarta are really well done. Very premium feeling knife. Good access to the lock bar. I did knock down the scale a little bit here so I can come in from the side. But again, this, like the Chernobyl Ant, is meant to be slid over, and it has the opening hole, which I think makes this a really clean design. No flipper tabs sticking out anywhere. Just really clean lines. Awesome drop point with a beautiful black wash blade. Reversible steel deep carry pocket clip. It is wire, but this is one of the few that I actually do like because it doesn't flex around, and then when it's in hand, you really don't feel it that much at all. I have finally again put skiff bearings in this as well, and the action is getting better and better as it continues to make the track on the opposite side of the washers. But this is just such an awesome knife, and I really do enjoy the size and the comfort of this. Jimping out here at the midpoint on the spine just make this such a great EDC. And believe it or not, the knife that beat it is one that just barely beats it because those two were carried a lot for EDC, and that is going to be the Demco AD 20.5. Between the two of these, this is definitely my most carried knife of 2022 as well. I really like the blade shapes. I love the handle and the thinness of this for EDC. Very friendly size, takes minimal space in pocket. Again, just enough room for me to use, and then a little bit of a choke up point here for detailed work. That really does work well with the jimping that's on the back of these knives. I do think that the shark foot blade, as they call it, is a little bit more friendly of a size for EDC because it does do more utilitarian tasks, but the clip point here definitely is more versatile because it does give you that puncture ability, and then you do have plenty of space for your push cuts, and then you can still manage draw cuts, but you have to get way up high, which is where I think the shark's foot has the advantage. Both of these have skiffs. These scales were made for me by Carbodize, again over on Instagram, and then these are the original Goat titanium scales. I've had these for several months, 6 to 8 months. I've had these on here, and I absolutely love the scales. The fitment on here is fantastic. The back spacer fits perfectly. It's a very tight fit. I actually had a hard time actually getting the spacers into the back spacer, or the barrel standoffs rather, into the back spacer. It's such a tight tolerance, which I really do appreciate. Lynch Northwest deep carry pocket clip on both of these knives. This one, oh, actually, no, both of these came like this anodized from Lynch Northwest, but I did take and add a little bit of blue onto the tip here to kind of balance and match the blues that I have on the titanium one. But, you know, great price point. I think even if you get the 3V variant, but the AUS-10A has performed really, really well. I really feel like it's very close to 14C28N Nitro V when they have that 60.5 heat treat on there. The edge has held up fantastic. The coating has held up pretty well. Let's see, you can definitely see it's gotten worn in as I've used this one. And again, these two, my most carried knives, and I love the lock system on them. And I just love the aesthetic of the knife overall. Fantastic knife. But let me know down in the comment, what has been your favorite knife to carry this year? What has been your favorite pickup this year? I think it's been a really awesome year to be an enthusiast in this industry because there's so many knives to choose from at so many different price points too. Let me move my little organizer over here. If you're on a $50 budget, for 59 bucks, you can get that Raccoon. I mean, that is an awesome button lock 14C28N micarta, really well done. Just such a great knife. And again, if you just like small knives, gentleman's knives, something that's not too intrusive, you can get something like the Ant or that Ohio Riverjack, which is a great knife. And you know, it's the secondary market too. Like a lot of people are selling the AUS-10A variant with the MacGyver. They're selling those knives for like $100, which is an awesome deal. That AUS-10A on the later run knives, I'm telling you, they're really well done and they hold up really well. But anyway, let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this video. You can do me a favor and leave a like. I'd appreciate that. And if you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe and follow along as I continue to bring you the content. Thanks to each and every one of you that are regularly leaving likes and comments. I appreciate you. I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week. And until next time, peace.